What's up everybody? Today I'm going to show you how to make Cheater's chicken soup. This is basically just chicken soup with roasted chicken. So we're going to start with chicken carcass and water. Any chicken bones, chicken carcass is fine. Usually I roast these, but I didn't have roasted on hand. These were frozen, so I just tossed them in, cover them with water, and put them over a high flame. Once it starts to simmer, I turn down the heat and then skim all the scum off the surface, and then let that simmer on a very low flame for about an hour. Now you can see the color is starting to change to that nice chickeny color. See the gentle bubbles coming up? That's about how we want it for an hour. So now I'm going to get all my vegetables ready. I'm going to start with about 2 or 3 tablespoons of oil, and I'm going to begin by sauteing my leeks. You could use onions. I had a leek that I needed to use, so I used that today. Add some salt and pepper. I like white pepper. Do not advertise. Healthy amount of salt, but not too much. Remember, you can put it in, but you can't take it out. Good cooking is about learning where the limits are. That just helps to draw out some of the moisture from the leeks or onions. A little bit of white pepper. And cook those for a few minutes until they start to change color. Next I'm going to add my potatoes. I chose to use russet potatoes, but almost any kind will do. And I cut these up into small cubes, smaller than the other vegetables, because I want them to break down and release their starch, which is also why I'm sauteing them first before the other vegetables. Also, you don't have to saute your vegetables, but I do feel like it gets the right tenderness that I like. Give that a stir once in a while, and if there's anything sticking at the bottom, try to get that up. Then add the other vegetables. I'm using carrot and celery. And that other vegetable is daikon radish, which I'm not going to saute, but I am going to add to the soup later. You don't have to do things in batches. You can just throw it all in all at once. You can saute it or not. You know, do whatever you want. I've seen people do it different ways that I thought never would work. And honestly, they all work. Really, making good soup and cooking in general is about trying different things and figuring out what works for you. Then I'm going to add the zest of 1 lemon, 6 to 10 cloves of garlic depending on your taste, about a teaspoon of ginger, all finely diced. And then I'm going to add them to the pot. First I'm going to put in the lemon zest to give that a head start, then the garlic and ginger in no particular order, and I'm going to put a healthy pat of butter because I found that the pot was starting to get a little dry on the bottom and I wanted to make sure that those herbs had plenty of oil. And then I'm going to mix that all together. Then I'm going to add my other herbs. I love bay leaves. So I added 3 bay leaves, about 5 or 6 clove thingies, and a buttload of thyme. I'm just going to take the filter off. Where's that second bottle? And then I love these in the soups, so I almost always add some kind of seaweed. I think this is kombu if I'm not mistaken, and then a couple of dried shiitake mushrooms. These really go a long way in boosting the savoriness. Now things are starting to stick, so I switched to a wooden spoon and started to scrape up the stuck bits off of the bottom. I definitely don't want anything to burn. Time to add the chicken bone broth, stock or whatever you want to call it. Put that in there all the way up to the top. Give that a good stir, and then time to taste. That needed a little bit more salt, a little more white pepper, and also to increase the savoriness and to give it a little color, I'm going to add some soy sauce. I like this brand 701. I've tried lots of different kinds of soy sauces. This one is my favorite for all-purpose cooking. And I'm going to let that simmer uncovered because I do want some of the liquid to evaporate. For about 45 minutes, an hour. I have a nice healthy simmer happening, not too out of control. Look at all the scum and impurities floating up to the surface, so I'm going to skim that off. Now it's time to get our chicken ready. You know your meat is fresh when he shows up. And I don't usually do this with the camera, so you can see that I struggled a little bit to find the right angle. Start by finding the breastbone. There's a loud truck outside, sorry. and slice straight down until you feel the rib cage. Once you hit the bone right there, angle the knife a little bit 45 degrees so that you're going along the rib cage, following the rib cage, and you cut the meat away from the ribs. Once the meat is cut away, you're just left with skin basically. Carefully find the right angle that's comfortable for you so that you can slice through the skin. Then do the same on the other side. Find the breastbone, cut down the side of it until you hit the rib cage. Then angle your knife like that to bring the meat away from the ribs until it's basically just attached with the skin. Then you slice through the skin. And don't cut towards your knuckles like I do. Don't be like me. Always cut away from your knuckles and your fingers. And then I'm going to flip it over, and there's no real scientific way to, and there's no real best way to do this. I just find the joint where the wing attaches to the body, and I try to cut through the joint. And then I always give a little, and then same thing on the other side. And I always cut that middle piece right there between the joints because to help to flatten it out a little bit, it cooks better. Then it's time to remove the thigh and the drum, and to do that I slice through the skin. I slice straight down until I find the joint, go through the joint and down the back. Cut through the skin, slice the muscle downward along the body, go straight through the back. Then I'm going to separate the drum from the thigh, and I'm going to put one incision in both to help them cook a little more thoroughly. This is the skin on the back, and it is delicious because it cooks up really nice and golden and crispy. And these cheeks I'm going to take off for you know who. There you go, buddy. I'm going to take 15 seconds to ask you for a donation. If this video helps you, please say thank you by sending a donation using one of the links in the description. Your helping to support me financially makes an enormous difference to my morale and frees me up from doing other jobs so I can do this more. Thank you. Now on with the video. Now I'm going to apply oil to both sides of these. I'm going to apply it to the underside first, then I'm going to turn them over so that they're, I don't know what you call, right side out. And I'm also going to roast that whole carcass because I'm going to put that into my stock. I like to have stock or bone broth available all week if I can. It really makes everything much easier. And I'm going to liberally apply oil. I'm using coconut oil because I do want the skin to get reasonably golden and crispy if possible. And also going to apply oil to the carcass. And then once those are all oiled up, it's going to go into an oven at 375 degrees for about 45 minutes or so. Check your chicken for readiness. Okay, so the broth is basically done. The soup is basically done. So what we have now is a very savory vegetable soup. And I'm going to stir it for a little while to encourage those white potatoes or those russet potatoes to break up and release more of their starch. And you don't have to do it this way. It'll thicken on its own, especially if you leave it overnight and have it the next day. Soup's always better the next day anyway because all the flavors start to really blend. Isn't soup amazing, guys? Good soup, labor of love. Not quite thick yet, but getting there. I can see the starch in the soup. All right, now the chicken is done. Careful, it's hot. That released a ton of liquid, which I'm going to pour off and reserve because I use the fat in cooking, especially in a kind of high water vegetable like kale that's not going to splatter. And look at how nice and golden those chicken pieces are. I'm going to serve this with some some crescent rolls. No advertising. About 10 to 12 minutes later, the crescent rolls are done, hot, steamy, and delicious, and it's time to serve dinner. And you know it smells good when the sharks start to circle. Now, this is the beautiful thing about this soup. It has this awesome chicken flavor. It has this really good, tasty, salty, crispy, savory, chewy, delicious chicken with the skin on. And everybody can have it however they want it, right in the soup or on the side, however you like. And man, it's so good and so beautiful and so nourishing. And you give it to your family. They're gonna season it in all kinds of weird ways by adding things like garlic powder and butter. But honestly, as long as they are happy and well fed, am I really gonna ask for more? Okay, guys, thanks for joining me. I hope you try this recipe, and until next time,